NASA makes it look easy, but let me tell you, it is not easy. Landing a rover on Mars successfully is not easy. In fact, if you look at the score count, we're about even right now between how many spacecraft have crashed on Mars and how many have successfully landed on Mars in the history of space exploration. It's not easy, but NASA has built a great system. In this particular landing, there was a couple of new technologies they even were able to debut. One of them, called terrain relative navigation, means that the rover actually had a map from an orbital image of Jezero crater stored on it in the descent stage, and it was taking pictures during landing and correlating those images with the map that was in its memory to figure out exactly where the safe spots were for landing. And so this was the demonstration of this new technology that actually substantially enhances our capability of landing on other planets by having part of the landing system itself decide in the end where it's going to land, as opposed to saying land here. We said land in this general area and it finds the safest spot. And that's really exciting because it means now we can land in more complex and rough terrains, because we know that in the end, the spacecraft itself is going to find that safe spot within that zone. But it's not easy. And so now we start our science exploration of Jezero Crater. And that prime mission is roughly 3 Earth years, and there could be extended missions after that. And during that time, we'll learn about the crater. We'll pick samples, put them into vials, and as you said, leave them on the ground for pickup. But the mission that's going to go pick up those samples, the next mission in the 3-mission chain that is Mars Sample Return, hasn't been built yet. It's being designed right now. It'll be launched in 2026. Everything stays on schedule. It could easily launch a little bit later. That then has to get to Mars, land on the surface, drive. A fetch rover that's developed by the European Space Agency will then pick up the vials that were left behind by Perseverance, bring them back to a lander that has a Mars ascent vehicle on it, which launches it into Martian orbit. And then another mission called the Earth Return Orbiter, which currently is scheduled to launch in late 2026 as well. But again, those schedules are nominal. Has to then pick that canister up from orbit and send it back to Earth. And so we expect that Earth return capsule to deliver those samples to the Utah Test and Range Facility, UTTR, just outside Salt Lake City in 2031. And so there was a lot of things that have to happen, right? We've got Perseverance on Mars now. Now we get to explore Jezero Crater and pick those samples, but then we have to send another mission to pick those samples up and put them in Martian orbit, and yet a third mission that goes and picks that set of samples up from Martian orbit and brings it back to Earth. So while the landing looked easy, none of those steps are easy, and that's why it takes a while, because you have to not send one mission, but send 3 missions to ultimately get those samples back to Earth.
And I'm guessing that third mission, the pickup, is not like going through your drive-through, just like swing by, grab the things, and hit the jets and come home. I'm guessing there's a whole process of that, and why that takes long if it's going to get there possibly in 27-ish.
Yeah, it's sometime in 20.
It's in orbit also with it for a while before it can then kind of pick up and return back to Earth.
The details of that process are being worked right now. We don't exactly know what it's going to look like. And part of the reason that it's done this way is that putting samples back into Martian orbit and picking up that canister from Martian orbit, those are really hard problems that have never been solved before. And so NASA and ESA are working together to solve those problems. And Perseverance is going to be collecting the samples and doing the science. Those other 2 missions are primarily engineering missions, because they're so complex that it makes sense to focus them solely on those tasks of getting those samples back into orbit and bringing them back to Earth. And because they are such hard tasks. And so you're asking great questions, and those are questions that the folks working on designing those missions are asking themselves right now as well. So you should look for that story to develop as they start figuring out exactly how the details of the Fetch rover, Mars ascent vehicle, and Earth return orbiter are going to work.